back. And today marks a historic moment in Namibia's journey as we celebrate 35 years of independence. This year's celebrations carry even greater significance as we witnessed the inauguration of Namibia's first female president, a milestone that speaks to the progress of our nation and that we continue to make. As we reflect on the past 35 years and look ahead to the future, more importantly, we must also consider the role of young people in shaping Namibia's development, particularly in education and technology. And joining me today is Gerson Nehumbo, a dedicated young leader who serves as the chairperson of Education and ICT Committee in the Children's Parliament. With a passion for youth development, education and ICT, he represents the voices of young Namibians in shaping policies that will define our future. Gerson, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Gerson, as a young leader, what does Namibia's 35th Independence Day mean to you personally?
I mean, to me, it's more than just a celebration. It's a reminder of what our comrades had fought for back then. It being freedom for independence, and they fought against communism. But at the end of the day, we as the youth have to decide on what our fight is. What we are going to fight for. Are we going to fight against economic barriers? Are we going to fight against the education? Or are we going to fight against the empowerment in the youth? So that's to us. Dear comrades already have done it for us. So it's to do what's remaining, and that's to continue fighting until Namibia is finally the Namibia that we've promised to be.
Gerson, this year's Independence Day celebrations are historic, with the swearing in of Namibia's first female president. So how significant do you think this moment is for young people and for the future, leadership in the country?
I mean, it is a very crucial historical moment. Not only does it shift us away from the old beliefs of gender equality, but this is a stepping stone to fair gender representation in leading positions. And this is one of first, not only for Namibia, not only for Africa, but for each and every country. So this is a very crucial and fun stepping stone that you're stepping into. And we say welcome to the new year and hope for nothing but the best.
You serve, Gerson, as I mentioned earlier, as the chairperson of the Education and ICT Committee in the Children's Parliament. So tell me how you see Namibia's progress in these areas, in the next 35 years.
I mean, we have moved on educationally, and we do acknowledge the fact that what was that back then is not what it is now. And we do acknowledge the fact that education was once a privilege and now it's a fundamental right, which is another very crucial stepping stone. However, we have to ask ourselves that, is the educational system doing us justice currently? And is the educational system currently meeting the requirements of the labor force outside and the reality of it? Is it preparing us mentally and emotionally for what we are waiting outside? So this is still the little things we work on. So as the chairperson of Education and ICT, we did identify a few crucial steps, and one of them are the bridging gap between the digital literacy and the vocational training centers, which needs to be bridged. So that's basically it.
If you, could highlight one change or a policy that could improve education as well as digital access for the youth, what would that be, Gerson?
I mean, we do need a very specific national, we do need a national skill and digital literacy policy that caters for every student within the Namibian sectors. It being vocationally, it being arts, it being science, it being commerce. We need a policy that caters for all of them equally and fairly. So what we mean is that we need an educational system that evolves around the market that's out there waiting for us. We need an educational system that's a true reflection to the reality outside, so that anything we do in school is a direct proportional to what we are going to do outside, so that we don't end up in confusion and in a cul-de-sac after what we call tertiary education, if I should say. The policy should basically bridge the gap between digital literacy and what's already missing. So those are the few important highlights that we as a Children's Parliament like to actually highlight.
How can young people, Gerson, actively participate in national development and ensure that their voices are heard when it comes to shaping policy?
It all starts with advocacy, number one. Number two, we would advise young leaders and advocates to join advocate organizations to continue advocating and organize, mobilize, and then what we call roll out. But at the end of the day, we have to ask, are they given the chance to? Are they well represented? So what we as the youth are asking is for well representation. We want to be represented in all sectors, it being government sectors, it being public, and it being in private sectors, so that we innovate and create the job employment for ourselves, so that we effectively bring up the economic that should support the youth. So if we would say is basically that, however, we do need empowerment from the government and we do need assistance from the government in order for all this to happen. But however, when we do get the chance, we should make the best use of it.
I'm going to assume that you watched today's proceedings as we swore in our fifth president, President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah Gerson, and in her inaugural speech, she did touch, on, of course, on some of the ticket items that would be priority, and she spoke about the youth, she spoke about job creation, etc. But in your own words and in your view, what role should government and private sector play in empowering young Namibians to take advantage of the opportunities in education and technology?
Seeing that we are moving into a more digital transformed economy and global stand, we should identify economic barriers that are stopping us from achieving what we call Vision 2030. Vision 20 was once a goal that is currently failing. So what we're saying is that we need a policy that aligns with the SDG goals, being the Sustainable Development Goals. We need a policy that aligns with all this to make it easier for us to comprehend and for us to move forward with whatever we want. And the government should provide us with the chance. Number one, they should provide us with the chance. They should provide us with the platforms to do all this. And the private should continue investing in things like infrastructures, industries. They should continue investing in urban, rural, and marginalized communities, seeing that those are the marginalized communities out there. So we do need a joint venture between the government and the public and the private sector to build a more conducive environment for the youth and for the future development of Namibia.
As Namibia celebrates 35 years of independence, what message do you have for your fellow young Namibians about the future of this country, Gerson?
A very short and brief message I would like to send out is that we should understand the fundamental aspects of what we call policy makings within Namibia, okay? And we should understand the crucial role education plays. And we should briefly understand and dive in more research to what's waiting for us out there. We should do proper research in the careers that are waiting for us out there, because how many times are we going to study the same course and yet overloaded? Yet there's so many other sectors that are so unpopulated that need workers. So my message is that to the youth, we should be more optimistic and eager to find out what more is there outside, what more is there to what we are just seeing, so that we have a deeper understanding as to what's going on in the reality, and so that we choose subjects and courses and modules in tertiary education that has to do with the demands and what's currently going on, the current status quo. We need to feed the current status quo and not what we think should be fed, basically, ma'am.
Gerson Nehumbo, it was a pleasure speaking to you this evening. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.